Hi there, guys. I'm Johnny Hackerman. You might remember me from all those heist movies. I'm the we're in guy. Well, I've been having a lot of trouble getting in lately because so many people have been using Surfshark. So for those of you that aren't using Surfshark's VPN services, please don't. Because I have bills and I need you to pay them. And I don't care how easy it is to type the code TeamFourStar at checkout to get 85% off your order. And sure, it's really nice to be able to access geo-locked content wherever you are in the world. And for those who don't use Surfshark's immensely convenient services on your phone, computer, or other smart devices, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Hello and welcome to the Talkcast Podshow, the #1 show on the internet and the royal family of the hype car. I'm Lanny and I'll be your conductor today on this discussion of Infinity Train, and I'm joined this week by your friendly steward, Introspective Spy. What's up, Quinn?
Hello. So that was a very poor attempt at 1-1. I won't try that again, don't worry.
You actually cut out there, so I couldn't hear it anyway.
Completely lost you.
Oh, thanks, Discord. Always a friendly companion.
Luckily, that should not affect the podcast version as you are recording yourself locally. So this will just sound very odd to people listening to the archive.
Uh-huh.
Also joined by the wielder of the mighty donut holder, Stephan. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. That's what I had to say.
Yeah. So when it came time to discuss, what were we going to do for this week's Talkcast? Because next week this week I wanted to talk about Scott Pilgrim with Kaiser, but he's out of town. So we're going to be doing that next week. But then, Stephan, you brought up that Infinity Train Season 3 or Book 3 was going to be coming out, I believe, tomorrow as of this recording.
Yes, it is. And I caught up as recently as, I think, 2 weeks ago. So.
And I had never seen it at all. I'd heard about it in passing, but I had never taken the time to check it out. So I'm like, you know what? I have a few other ideas in the book for maybe an episode, but if I can't think of those, then I'll just watch through that. And
so this must have been a pretty pleasant surprise.
Yes, very much so. It took a couple episodes for me to get into it, but once I was in, I was absolutely hooked and kind of entranced by the world that they presented you. Needless to say, very happy with how it came out. Tweeted last night that I'm just over the moon about this, and the fact that we're getting, the fact that I just binged through all this and we're getting more of it tomorrow. I'm psyched.
Glad if nothing else that it led to you getting a new show that you love.
Dude, when it comes to with all this bullshit that's been going on in the world, the quarantine, all the politics and just everything that's happening this year, I need things like this to help me get by. People need escapism, and this is a surprisingly emotionally intelligent, incredibly charming, well put together show.
That's definitely for older kids.
It really is. I was when I was watching this, I was like, okay, what exactly is your demographic here? Because it's the kids that are too old for your traditional Cartoon Network fare, but not quite old enough for the cynicism of Adult Swim.
I'd say 12 and up.
Yeah, somewhere in the tweens and teen, early teen era,
and an underserved demographic. So I'm glad they're getting stuff where it's hell yeah, we had Avatar, but they, kids who are 12 and up don't really get shows aimed at them. They get shows that they can watch as well, and it's nice to have a show that's more, just a little more mature, a little more. It's not trying to jump up and down for your attention all the time.
Yeah. So you guys just heard my introduction to this show. What were your introductions? What got you to give Infinity Train a chance just to go check it out? Quinn, what was your experience there?
So I actually found the show back in, I think, either 2016 or 2017. It was while I was still in law school. Cartoon Network had been pulling for a new animated shows, and when pilots were pitched to them, they were also, I guess at just some later date, put up on YouTube. And I found Infinity Train by finding it that YouTube pilot before the series was even announced for Cartoon Network. The pilot itself is actually pretty much just the Corgi Car episode of season 1. And that alone got me hooked. I liked the intrigue they were throwing around. There were a few changes. The train itself looked more like just a very long passenger train instead of like the monolithic cars you end up with in the show. And I think that was a good change. But just seeing glimpses of the dynamic between 1-1 and Tulip, Atticus. I always like the nice, cute corgis. And then the steward showing up at the end, suddenly throwing a wrench into everything. That was alone to let me keep an eye out for it.
We'll try to stay pretty spoiler free early on here in our discussion, because this show goes places, like pretty far places, like from where it starts to where it ends up.
Is the mystery, especially in season 1.
So yeah, early on here, don't worry, we aren't going to talk about like big story spoilers. Mostly just like a tone feel of the show and like the impact I believe it has on, like we might believe it has on like the audience watching it, but we'll get into some spoilers at some point here, but we'll let you know beforehand. Stephan, what was your introduction? What got you to go give it a shot, check it out?
I also saw the pilot first back when it was on YouTube, and it did come out back in 2016. And it was definitely different from the show that you got. It's the art style was different. It was basically the Corgi Car one, but I gotta admit, like the pilot, I liked it. It was fine, but the pilot didn't like hook me the way it hooked a lot of other people who were like really excited when they heard it got picked up. And I was like
super diehard Infinity Train stans.
Yeah, like people were like instantly into it, and I definitely saw a lot of potential in it, but it wasn't like something I was really diehard into, which is why it took me this long to watch the first 2 seasons.
What was it that got you back in, out of curiosity?
Needing something to watch.
So just
to like get me out of like just general anxiety. So I just picked something.
Good show for it.
Honestly, yeah, like it distracted me. Like it kept me engaged all day.
The tone and feel of this show, I feel like the best, most apt Cartoon Network description I could give it would be a slightly more mature version of Adventure Time, but in like a sci-fi aesthetic rather than a fantasy aesthetic.
Well, and like to be even more specific there, Adventure Time had an episode with a train kind of like this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it did. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about the dungeon train.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I wonder if like someone from that staff is who came on to like eventually make Infinity Train. That'd be, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, eventually people who work on shows do often get a chance to pitch their own shows for the network. So that might be what happened here. But I haven't confirmed that. I actually haven't looked into the whole making of.
You haven't looked into Owen Dennis's background?
Nah, not quite.
Yeah, because Owen Dennis, the creator / big overall showrunner of Infinity Train, he's also the voice of the more morose side of 1-1.
The Marvin side?
Yes. He's... I'm not entirely familiar with his work either. I know he did some stuff as a... he's done a lot of stuff for writing, I think, on Regular Show, if I'm correct.
That's right. I just pulled him up. A lot of his writing credits that aren't for Infinity Train are for Regular Show. I actually don't see anything for Adventure Time on here.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's all still like in-house Cartoon Network stuff. So, it could be staff to staff, or it could just be like inspiration. But the idea of the dungeon car was actually very different for the concept of the Infinity Train itself, which is...
Yeah, the only like connective tissue there is just that each car has its own sort of thing going on. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. But like in this case, it's more that each train car is kind of a little TARDIS that has its own little world inside it.
In that regard, it's almost like a emotionally supportive hypercube.
Yeah. And yeah, it's got this weird like unknowable sci-fi element to it. Like it's sci-fi, but it's also so advanced that you're not
it
meant to
may as
understand
well be
it.
magic.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
there's
'cause,
rules, but you don't understand them.
Yeah, like the way the train, each car is essentially like a hollow deck with its own little universe on the inside of it, like to like lend itself from like Star Trek lore.
Yeah, though in this case the holograms would be very much manifested in like actual people.
Although I do believe there have been times in Star Trek where the holograms have come to life and become evil. I remember there being a couple episodes like that.
It's at least enough to be parodied.
Yeah, that has absolutely happened. And there was, the doctor in Voyager who eventually got to be able to be corporeal. And speaking of, this show has Kate Mulgrew, Captain Janeway, who does a great job. I love hearing her in anything. I'm happy to have her in any show that I'm watching.
She's really great as the cat, too. The cat is such a great, mysterious, like you never know what its motivations are kind of character. And she plays it off very well.
Oh, yeah. And like I'd love to see more of that character eventually. That'd be great.
You got a bunch of like interesting guest stars here and there, like in the Corgi car, the character Atticus, voiced by Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson, who like is a really, really good voice actor in a way that I did not expect.
Surprisingly so.
Like, I feel like I would have heard him more. And maybe he has been doing a lot of voice acting, but I really only know him as a on-screen actor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ernie Hudson does a killer job in the show.
So without going into too many spoilers, I know the episode that got me to keep going and binging, and the episode that absolutely hooked me. What was the episode that pulled you in and just said, okay, I'm going to give this show a chance? And what was the episode that hooked you without too many spoilers?
For me, mine's going to be pretty quick because it was essentially the pilot. I didn't think it was a show I followed that devoutly, but the pilot put it on my radar. And then when Cartoon Network said, "Oh, we're making it a series," I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch it. And then I watched it, and the Corgi episode came by. I enjoyed the differences. I think it really helped flesh out just the universe of the show more than the pilot did. And so I guess you could just say I was on board from the start, pun not intended.
Hell yeah.
For me, it was the episode with the mirror car in season 1. Like, I was already into it and enjoying it, but that's the one where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in.
It gets real intense there too, and
yeah, and like it also like sets up some cool stuff for the future of the show. Like, and I really liked that element of it, and I liked that it was acting like an actual science fiction show. In that, like, it'll just stop and ask some hard moral questions, just ask about the implications of what's going on, like, in a way that a Star Trek episode would, or any good sci-fi does, where it actually like prompts you to think about things a little harder. And I appreciate that.
The episode that got I give every show a 3-episode rule. Like, if it gets me by like episode, if I'm willing to keep going by the end of episode 3, it's got something going. Episode 3 is Corgi Car, which we've discussed several times. And I'm like, okay, this is charming. I like where this is going. And episode 4 hooked me. It's just, there are so many little touches in there, little emotional things that reading into it. Because before that episode, I'm like, okay, these guys know how to write a show. They know how to make some like funny, compelling characters. Episode 4 is where I sat there and I thought, psychologically speaking, they know exactly what they're going for and exactly what they're doing, and I love this. And
which episode is that specifically, just in a broad sense?
The Crystal Car.
Okay.
Yeah, the Crystal Car. It's and I'm going to. I think it's hard to discuss this anymore without going into spoiler territory, unless there's something you can think of to touch around with before we start talking spoilers here for season 1, at least.
A lot of stuff I want to talk about would be considered spoilers. It's a show that's hard to really dig into unless you are spoiling it. So if this is enough to grab someone, just stop listening.
Highly, heavily recommend it, because there's a lot of mystique and nuance to this show that get lost in typical conversation if you're not watching it yourself. This is definitely a show to experience before you hear everything about it. So I'd say if you haven't watched it yet, it's on HBO Max right now. You can. I'm sure there are a number of different ways that you can get to it.
Yeah, I bought both seasons on Amazon Prime for me because I don't have HBO Max right now, and you know, you can get through the entire show in a day, like pretty easily.
Yeah, each episode is about 10 minutes long, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, and 10 episodes per season, so that's, you know, not too long, all things considered.
And I just watched it on TV like a chump.
Not anymore.
There's nothing wrong with you won't be anymore because I think the entire book 3 is just going to be on HBO Max for now.
Don't get me started on that.
That is the case.
I will say, to at least better frame it, if you were a fan of Adventure Time and regular show and just kind of wished there was more of a character journey for the people in those shows, this is definitely the show for you.
Oh yeah, this show is very character focused and very always moving forward.
And it's very self-contained because while there is definitely an arc to the characters in Adventure Time, it's very long and drawn out because it's all about puberty and it's all about Finn going from being a child to being a young adult. Like that's what Adventure Time was.
Yeah, and this show has an episodic format, but it is heavily serialized.
And one thing that's not spoiler related that I will say that I absolutely love about at least the first season. Second season kind of does this as well, but the first season is where it matters. Every single episode, while it might not feel like it's going anywhere sometimes, every episode there is a little piece of the overall plot sprinkled in. The introduction of an important character or an important plot device, or an important theme or a new discovery. Every episode has at least one of those in each of the 10 episodes, which is very good for self-contained viewing. It's why they don't actually call these seasons. They call them books, like Avatar.
Yeah.
Where like when the first one's wrapped up, that is a self-contained story. You actually don't even need to go on to watch season 2. That story, like season 1, that story is done. By the end of season 2, that story is done. And I'm very excited to see the story that they're going to tell in season 3 because they introduced some really cool characters in season 2 that I want to explore the idea of them more.
Yeah, I love the whole anthology sort of approach to it where the world will always go on, but you will get a very satisfying conclusion at the end of every single season. So, you know, if the show unfortunately gets canceled before its time, you won't feel like you've been robbed of something. You'll just be like, because I just didn't get more of the thing I like.
Yeah, every season is like, this could be the end, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's the same way I felt about Harley Quinn, where like at the end of season 2 or season 3, but whatever, at the end of season 2, it kind of closes the book on something. And if there is a third season, awesome. If there isn't, you know what? They told a self-contained story.
Yeah.
I like shows that can do that. And this is a show that does that very well. So please go check it out. Watch it. High recommendation. You are now entering spoiler zone.
Yep.
So the thing that really hooked me in episode 4 was the fact that this entire journey that Tulip is taking is about, like, you know, her growth emotionally and trying to come to terms with her parents' divorce, essentially, is what you learn throughout the season, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that episode, the word up scene is so brilliantly animated and so brilliantly performed.
It's very
by
real.
Ashley Johnson. It really is, because in order to get out of the crystal car, she needs to sing an emotional song, and then the door, like a stairway, will appear and the door will open.
Yeah, and she interprets that as like a song that has emotional content.
Exactly. So we see very early in this episode that she's not afraid to sing. She's not afraid to like belt it out, even though Tulip herself is not an incredible singer. Like, she doesn't have an amazing voice. She still goes for it. But then she's being like, then she learns, like, no, you have to sing a song that like means something to you. Think about stuff that makes you happy. And she thinks about like a couple of things and then settles on road trips and it reminds her of a song that she used to sing with her family going on road trips, which was Word Up. And all of a sudden, when it's a song that means something to her, she gets really defensive. She clams up. She gets really embarrassed. She crosses her arms. Her body language is all about it. And the performance sells it that she's just doing this for the hell of it. Like just doing it to move on, to get past it, close your eyes, hold your nose and go.
Yeah.
But as she gets more support from the people around her, like 1-1 and Atticus, she starts to open up more and more and start to sell the performance more, which I thought was absolutely beautiful and brilliant.
Yeah. It's a moment like, and honestly, like using a real world song actually really helps in this context because it helps it feel more like just like what an American child might actually like, you know, their millennial ass parents might have had them singing in the car together at one point.
From the looks of it, I'm pretty sure this show is set somewhere in the early 90s, late 80s.
That works too.
Because you see her in her room programming what looks to be like an Atari or an Amiga game. And the technology kind of matches up with that. So does her parents' car.
Cell phones, though.
They don't introduce those till the second season.
That's a good point.
That could be a time skip.
That is a good point.
Well, I could have sworn I feel like in the Crystal Car she was singing like Korn's rendition of Word Up, and that was early 2000s.
Huh. I don't know.
Like she may just be tooling around with slightly older tech.
Maybe. I suppose that's possible, but all the tech that you saw in the real world and the soundtrack especially, which is very reminiscent of Stranger Things at times with its heavy 80s synth, kind of left me to believe that the world feel was supposed to be somewhere in the early 80s, reminiscent of what I'm assuming to be Owen Dennis's childhood.
It's possible. And yeah, like the soundtrack really evokes the same thing the Stranger Things soundtrack evokes, which is John Carpenter's scores.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I say it's not a horror guy, but John.
It's also very possible that they're going for kind of a timeless world feel, kind of like Batman the Animated Series, where the technology is just kind of all over the place, and the technology and the world technology, whatever time it is, doesn't matter. What matters is the story and the characters, which is definitely true.
And I'm willing to bet like the train more or less exists outside of time. So.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The train seems to be very much a TARDIS-like instrument that exists in neither time nor space.
I would say one thing that like is really cool to me, like when I think back on it, is in that first episode, you see that like basically what we learn later is someone's gate opening up so they can go home. But it's framed from Tulip's perspective of not understanding what's happening, and it looks like someone just being disintegrated into the sky.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Somebody being ripped apart on a molecular level.
Yeah.
And then I really like that framing at first, and then later on you're like, oh no, it's fine. That's actually the good thing.
Because they lead you into this world of, like I said, there's every car of the train has this level of whimsy to it, this level of like happiness, but there's also this very dark undertone to everything. And sometimes those undertones become the overtones.
Right.
Especially
in season 2.
Especially in season 2, but in season 1, when they go into the play place car, episode 8, holy shit.
Yeah, that's
I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's a lighthearted trial. I'll help you find the door if you can pass my test, which are, a bunch of kiddie stuff. And then, oh no.
Hanging out with
Ron
dear,
Funches. Atticus, no.
The juxtaposition and the fact that they end an episode with the killing of a beloved character.
Yeah.
Or the deconstruction of a beloved character.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. I was sitting there with my jaw on the floor.
Yeah. and so much of the episode is spent just like falling around Ron Funches, being silly. Harley Quinn connection there.
Yeah.
And then just at the end, oh, never mind. I will say I loved during that episode, like that also you could see the creepy stuff happening in the background if you're paying attention to the episode.
Like through the windows, you can see like the silhouette of one of the claws creep by.
Yeah, so you can like feel the episodes like building to something creepy and terrible, but you probably don't expect it to go that hard.
You really don't. And Atticus has some of my favorite lines in this show. One of my favorite lines he had is from that episode. I did not go on this crusade just to flee from my dragon. Such a noble King Corgi.
Also, like, maybe the best dog joke of any show I've seen.
Several great dog jokes.
But just, like, specifically like the go out. Well,
No,
well,
yes, no,
yeah, no,
maybe not. I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and just like it's a very, very good joke, and the timing is perfect.
The Corgi car is just so charming, mostly because when it once Atticus is introduced, he immediately becomes kind of like I want to say a majority of people's favorite character for season 1. I loved his just his tour of the facility, capping with like him going along with Tulip and 1-1 on their journey to slay the monster that's been plaguing their lands, which turns out to be the steward, you learn later, of the train.
Yeah.
And
played by Lena Headey.
Fucking
well,
Cersei
I think
Lannister
you're talking
herself.
about the
Cersei
conductor.
Lannister.
Oh yeah,
What was
yeah.
that?
Talking about
I think Lena did Amelia, who was the conductor,
yeah.
because the
She's
steward is
Amelia.
actually voiced by Tulip Ashley Johnson.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Lena Headey is the conductor, aka Amelia, who has quite a story all her own, and I'm interested to see if she gets a season of the show to herself.
Yeah, she's still on the train.
Then you'd have to bring Lena Headey in for a that would have to be your capper, your ender, because she's a big.
Something tells me she doesn't come cheap.
I'd be surprised if she doesn't show up in this next season, but
I was thinking the exact same thing, because even the book itself is called Cult of the Conductor, which is Apex's whole shtick.
She's got to show up again. She's been foreshadowed.
Yeah, but one of my favorite joke in that episode in particular, from Atticus. We Corgis are a proud people and do not like to be held, after letting everybody know that, that river, it's 2 feet deep. We drown. So Tulip's like, wait, why are you telling me? And it just flash cuts to her holding a struggling Atticus as she tries to carry him across the river.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever held a dog that did not want to be picked up knows that pain.
Yeah.
God. And then,
go ahead.
and then there's I'm just on an Atticus tangent here. And then there's the joke from the episode, your favorite episode, the mirror car, or the episode that hooked you anyway, the chrome car.
Yeah, there's another dog there.
He keeps barking at the reflection, and then when Tulip ends up on the reflection side talking to reflection Atticus is barking at the reflection. Oh, there he goes again.
Yeah.
Why does he do that?
And it's funny, but it's also like a very clear example of the mirror characters are their own people, and they're affected by what as we learn what they're called later, their primes do. So Mirror Atticus is scared of Atticus because he keeps barking at him.
It just yells at him every time he sees him.
Yeah, so he's just scared of him, and it's kind of sad. I will say though, in terms of favorite characters, I do really like 1-1, who is literally, and this isn't a problem, but he's literally just fucking Wheatley from Portal 2 and Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide smashed together into the same character.
That's exactly what I thought. I saw him as Wheatley, and as soon as they were about to plug him into the main console of the train, I'm like, oh, this is where shit goes bad again, huh?
But no, he belongs there.
This is where he's meant to be.
Yeah.
Actually, so did either of you see the kind of mini-series they had between book 1 and book 2, where 1-1 was just touring the cars?
No, that sounds great though.
Yeah, I did not. Are those webisodes? Those are not on HBO Max.
I think they're still on Cartoon Network's channel, and I hope they are. I haven't seen them in a while, but it is very much just 1-1 playing off himself.
That's
as
fun.
the kind of energetic Wheatley one try to give the tour of the car, while the Marvin one is behind the camera, always giving just sardonic commentary. There's the last episode is the wedding car, and you just have the depressive one behind the camera going, well, this is all meaningless. What an invention. But hey, look, there's cake.
Yeah. that's yeah, and I really do like 1-1, and I also like that 1-1's not necessarily a good person. He's just a robot who wants to, do his job.
He has a drive that he needs to do, and that drive is to fix people, which is the purpose of the train.
Yeah, like 1-1's nice, but like, when in season 2, like, which we haven't talked about yet, we'll probably talk about that as its own thing soon. But like, he has a moment.
Well, that'll be an entirely separate spoiler thing, because this is just for people who have seen season 1 for right now. But
he does have a moment where you just go, oh, 1-1's not really, like, he doesn't care about what's right. He cares about what will get his job done.
And he's very easy. He's like, when he's unplugged from the mainframe, he's very easy to confuse and just kind of aimless.
Yeah.
In the unfinished cars, where you start to get ideas of exactly what his true purpose is, which also leaves some kind of like one thing this show does brilliantly. Every time they are like trying to give you hints as to like what's coming, they always deliver anything that could be good or bad with kind of a neutral undertone, where it could be considered as like something that might be good could be considered bad, because what 1-1 does in the unfinished car, which introduces the idea that some of these cars are being made and they're not properly put together. So something's wrong with the train here is the idea that you're getting with the plot. As he's trying to, in his own words, fix it, try to make things right, he's actually ruining the car for its denizens.
Right.
And it kind of culminates in this cataclysmic event where he's literally destroying the gravity of the car by maneuvering and like fucking with these little orbs that are what projects the I guess artifacts of the car, like make them function.
It was also so when I was getting to the later part of the episode, I thought it was just kind of weird. I don't think it was ever intended to be a commentary, but just how people get used to broken systems and just make do with them. And then when you try fixing them, it's like, oh no, well now it's all wrong because I've been disrupted. It may be right logically and physically, but I've done it the other way for so long.
Though you could see it through an entirely different lens, and like something that looks broken to you in, let's say, another culture isn't necessarily, and you don't need to fix it. Like you can see it as sort of a colonialist attitude that destroys
That's
things.
very true. It's like pressing the caps lock.
Yeah. In that unfinished train, this like some of the streets are covered in like grape jelly or jam.
And they just use it to get places faster.
Yeah. Tulip is going around trying to clean the stuff up to like, clean up the streets. And then a bunch of the turtles, which are the people that inhabit the train, talking turtles, are like, hey, who cleaned this up? Why is the jam all dry? It's like, well, I was trying to clean the streets for you. Then how are we supposed to get places? And you see a turtle like run, like doing as best as it can to run and then slide on the jam to move quicker. And then he instantly stops and crashes at the end where it's wiped up.
Yeah. And then like, I will say like that episode is a little difficult to parse when it comes to what it's saying. Cause then at the end it's sort of like, hey, you can't just keep trying to fix things that, you're breaking things even more. And it seems like it's supposed to represent something that Tulip's going through personally. But it's a little hard to parse. It's not bad that it's up for interpretation, but it's a little difficult to tell what they were going for with that episode. Not that it was bad.
I think one of the things that makes it hard to parse is because as you learn, the train's purpose is to serve a function for everybody, every human that boards it, every passenger that boards it.
Yeah.
As does every, they're eventually called nulls by a faction, like the
mean people.
Yeah, by the Apex faction. Later in season 2, each of the nulls serves a purpose to help a passenger get off the train and learn their lesson and be better people.
Grow as people.
But that unfinished train, you learn, is a failed experimental car. So even if it doesn't necessarily teach her a lesson, that is why. And maybe that's what's really bothering 1-1.
Right.
Because it's not, because that car has no purpose. It's not serving anything to anybody.
Yeah. That said, like, while I do have that like very light criticism, I think so far Infinity Train like literally has no bad episodes.
Yeah, not really. Every single episode serves a purpose. Like I said, it sprinkles its lore throughout. Even in season 2, they and in season 2 it kind of like explodes and they expand on the lore even more.
Yeah, and season 2 is less about a mystery at that point. It's more of a story, like just a story. But like the mystery in season 1 though is really, really compelling, and it's one of those things where I was glad I didn't know too much because it was very fun to like watch a mystery show again after Lost being gone for so many years, where you're just sort of like, oh man, what's gonna what the hell's even going on? I can't wait to learn.
What's that mean? What's the number on their hand mean? What why is it moving like that? What do these orbs do? What's that tentacle monster thing?
Yeah, and you know, like actually,
what's with the cat?
Actually, that matches up with a lot of questions in Lost as well. And as much
I was about to mention, you're talking about the nulls being there to help, but unless you want to say the cat isn't a null, the cat is not very helpful.
Oh, she's clearly a null.
The fact that it doesn't have a number means that it probably is, but you could arguably say that the cat, even in its own shrewd way, does help.
Yeah. I mean, especially by the end.
It teaches lessons that need to be learned regardless, even if it has its own selfish desires.
Yeah, like, and like, you know, the cat, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a helpful character in order to help someone learn a lesson, right? Like, antagonistic forces can do that too.
Like, the cat is basically a foil to anybody. And to an extent, the cat doesn't ever actually do many things that are actually that underhanded.
Yeah, like not unless like literally compelled to by the conductor.
Yeah, and even the you know, the trap that the cat sets with the conductor with the introduction of the memory tapes that can trap a person and try to like get them to sort through their own happy memories. That in and of itself pushed actually kind of like forced Tulip to grow because she needed to get out of there. She needed to face her bad lessons and like the lessons of, you know, what it is she needed to learn. And in doing so, it actually probably sped up her progression by a great deal, even though it was also essentially a very dangerous prospect as well. Like that could have trapped her forever.
It probably did, didn't it? Like the number went down quite a bit.
Yeah, it went down to 3, I think, by the end of that episode. Which...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, which I guess, I mean, we're talking spoilers. Anybody who's seen the show knows what the numbers mean by now. You get a green glowing number on your hand, and by the time it reaches 0, that means that you're at a psychological balance. The problem that you were brought to face on the train has been dealt with in your mind, and you are now free to go back to your life.
Yeah. And but at first, like when you don't know what the number means, like it could very easily be a countdown to death or something. It's so hard to know. And there's no, you know, way to even parse why the number's going down for a while. So it's kind of frightening. Which makes for such a very intriguing show, especially as you get introduced to so many more concepts along the way, like the memory tapes and the conductor, who's introduced in episode 8 in a horrifying manner. Yeah.
And then finally you learn what the conductor is and what they're about, thanks to the cat, actually.
Yeah.
You know, who's in there to kind of get some payback, but also to help Tulip serving her purpose on the train.
Yeah. And also, like, I love that, like, the conductor's whole look, it looks like a certain way, and you probably don't think about it much at first, but then, like, especially over the course of season 2, like, by the end of it, you figure out what every single little piece of the conductor's outfit was, like, what she stole from to make her conductor look. And that's pretty neat.
Yeah, because you learn that the conductor is a woman by the name of Amelia, played by Lena Headey. And she has essentially she's a master engineer. and was brought on the train to deal with the loss of her husband, and has so far been completely unable to do so, to the point that the number on her hand, it kind of grew in a cancerous fashion due to her inability to face that reality and try to move forward, and severe regression and probably several other sins that compounded on top of it.
Yeah, like everything she's been doing this whole time.
Yeah, her entire body is covered by this incalculable number.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the train probably shouldn't have picked her up in the first place, because I think once she realized just what the train could do, she became fixated.
Yeah, and she's just decided, well, this train can make anything happen. It can make my life happen the way it was.
But the thing is, like, the train, and by extension 1-1, is a creature of logic and emotion. Like, it is incredibly empathic in its ability to read what a person is feeling, obviously, because it can calculate that down to a numerical basis. But it's also very insanely logic driven by the fact it's like, okay, here's the formula that will be needed to fix this person. Unfortunately, because it relies on that logic, you end up with people that don't understand and just don't learn the lesson. And you meet in season 2 an entire tribe of people who are basically living on this train, and
just straight up don't believe.
Who either don't believe or don't understand or just don't want to leave.
Yeah. And
the conductor is very much one of those.
Yeah. And also basically inadvertently creates the little cult.
Now that's something I've actually been hooked on. I don't know if we want to go ahead and cross into season 2 territory, but when it comes to the background,
I think we can at this point.
Yeah, we've exhausted
season
2.
From this point forward, we will now include topics from season 2. So
Heavy
if you've seen
spoilers.
season 1, heavy spoilers for season 2, which I'll admit, the spoilers for season 2 probably not quite as bad as the spoilers for season 1. Season 1, I think, is like, if you get that spoiled, way worse. But
yeah.
Spoilers for season 2 moving forward.
I had spoilers for season 2, and I was fine watching season 2 anyway.
Yeah, I think the mystery around the train, which is answered in season 1, is definitely the much more interesting mystery. But anyway, when it comes to Apex, I kind of don't get the logic of their background, because while I can understand people seeing the number in a different way, especially given the lack of context that they're given when the conductor's running the show, because as we see in season 2, now that 1-1's back, he starts telling people, if you want to get off the train, get your number down. And if you get your number down, you can do it by doing, get friends, to explore the train, have fun.
Grow as a person. Then you'll be able to go home.
Yeah, but then you have Apex, which shows up and says, oh, 1-1's the usurper. The real conductor was Amelia. This was her symbol, and they all have that oscillating line across their face. And, they've completely subverted her purpose. Like, she was doing whatever she wanted just to get her husband back. They're saying, we want high numbers because we don't ever want to get off the train because we're strong and we're, that's why we're Apex. We're at the top.
And they also, they think they're basically racking up a high score.
Yeah. But the thing is,
because they probably saw her, I guess they never actually saw her score, but it's pretty easy to believe that one of them, or at least a couple of them that started this cult, had probably met her before she donned the guise of the conductor.
Potentially.
Now, see, that's what I'm not entirely sure about, because as we see in season 1, if it seems like whenever Amelia could help it, she sends the steward to do her dirty work. So it's not exactly a plot hole, because yes, it could be explained that at some point people ran across Amelia and were able to pull this ideology from her. But with how it was presented in season 1, my suspension of disbelief kind of collapses, and I can't really see how Apex would have gleaned the idea that Amelia was the real conductor.
There had to be a point in time, though, where Amelia did not have control of the train, but was still using parts of the train for her purposes. So racking up a large number as she went while not wanting to face her own demons. So it's pretty likely that she ran across, a couple of people that ended up starting this cult. Namely, I think Grace is one of them. That's I think who's going to be the protagonist of the next season.
That definitely looks like it.
And the guy that's with her, who for the life of me I can't. Simon. Yes, Grace and Simon, who appear to be the leaders of this gang of lost boys, essentially. For lack of a better word, the leaders of this apex cult. So it's not out. Like I think it's actually likely that they probably found her before she found Amelia, before she got control of the steward, before she got control of the train, and just thought what she was doing was really cool. And maybe like Tulip, they saw somebody go into the hole and just get ripped apart in front of them. And they think, going through that hole, that kills you. Why would I do that?
And this may be something that's just expanded on in the next season coming up.
But slight flaw in that logic. They see Jesse leave in book 2.
Yes, and actually in the trailer for season 3, they mentioned that we lost another one.
Yeah,
so
like they sort of frame it as
that wording.
Yeah, they frame it as like they lost somebody, like they did the wrong thing.
I'm not no. So I don't disagree with the fact that they believe getting off the train is bad. I don't think they see it as death. Because when they see Jesse leave, they see him go through the doorway that leads back to the world.
Yeah, it's kind of up in the air.
But the visuals of him going through it, from that perspective, still involve him being ripped apart on a molecular level.
I may have to go rewatch the scene because I think out of all of us, I haven't seen that in the longest period. I just remember it making it the way Grace acted after Jesse left was more like a darn it, MT, you misled this passenger and I don't like you.
Mm-hmm. And that's also possible. I mean, it's possible that they don't think they actually die when they leave. I just think it's possible that they do. The other, like the alternate side to that would be this cult believes that it's, the train is there to serve the passengers. They are the passengers. So they want to get control of this train, which has been usurped by its, initial 1-1. It's been usurped by 1-1. They want to get control back over it, and they need more people to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they definitely they straight up treat it like a video game. That's kind of the idea, right?
Yeah,
is that they want to rack up points. They see everyone who isn't them as an NPC.
Yeah, and they loot cars.
Yeah, it's just a big game of Grand Theft Auto.
Anybody that's not a number is not a player and therefore doesn't have feelings or matter.
Right. And I think that's, and honestly, especially right now, like just a group of people who just absolutely don't believe truth when they're being told it and just go do destructive things. That really hits home for me right now. I don't know why. Yeah, it's a mystery. Yeah. It's
kind of timely, all things considered.
It was not intended to be, but boy is it. And
of course, Apex, at least in book 2, Apex serves as the kind of flashpoint between the division between our protagonists in book 2. I maybe calling Jesse a protagonist is giving him a bit too much agency, but
it's kind of a co-protagonist. I mean, he's a secondary protagonist because your main protagonist is MT or Mirror Tulip.
Yeah,
which is introduced in the Chrome car.
Yeah, and that's
of season 1.
Yeah, and I really I knew that was going to happen in season 1, and when I saw how she was introduced. But like before book 2, I was like, oh shit, that's really cool. And I love that they just said, all right, yeah, like we introduced this character and they're so interesting that they get their own story next season. And I'm going to really enjoy looking for that in season 3.
It's really cool because the Chrome Car episode in season 1 is so lore rich that it's kind of it is kind of a it's a soft pitch for a sequel or a soft pitch for a spin-off.
Yeah. And the voice actors for the agents, they knew they were going to do more with them because they're voiced by Ben Mendelsohn, who you probably know as the Skrull in Captain Marvel and the villain in Star Wars Rogue One.
Director Krennic.
Yeah. I only saw the movie once, so I don't remember the character's name. But he voices the one who you would imagine he voices. He has the accent. And then Bradley Whitford is the other one, the more rookie one. And I don't know, Bradley Whitford's a guy like everyone's seen around. Trying to think about what specifically. Oh, Get Out. He's the dad in Get Out.
Oh, okay.
Like I'd vote for Obama twice, like 3 times or whatever. That guy. He's the younger agent, and they got them like 4 of those characters in that season. So I guess they knew what they were going to be doing next. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have gone with such
it gets real Blade Runner out of nowhere there in that episode.
Yeah,
where
and I love it.
The mirror world has its own society and its own laws. Where if you switch places with your reflection, that means like you're committing mirror, like you are committing a huge crime. Yeah. You've gone rogue as a reflection. You've become what do they call them? Slivers.
Yeah,
a broken reflection. Because Tulip ends up letting out her reflection. Who they really changed the rules on this one where they need to be attached to a reflective surface at all times, but they can find their way out of a reflective surface if they have a protective suit on.
Mm-hmm.
So all throughout season 2, Mirror Tulip, who is, now on the train, finding her own life, living her own life, making her own decisions, is constantly running around with a can of spray paint to paint over any reflective surfaces so that she can't be tracked down by these mirror police who literally want to grind her into dust, into non-existence.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically like, you could see it as them like treating her like an illegal immigrant sort of thing, just chasing after her. They don't stop. She's not doing anything wrong. She's just technically not where she's quote unquote supposed to be.
Yeah, to them she's not supposed to exist.
I would phrase it almost like a fugitive slave, because the reflections are given a choice if their prime dies and thus isn't able to be reflected anymore. But as long as the prime is up and at them, the reflection is supposed to be there. Yeah. And if they're not, then they're hunted down.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, it's not probably just meant to be sort of a catch-all for just any like oppressive system that tries to keep people oppressed within its system and make examples out of everyone who escapes.
And that lesson is only more compounded when, as the season goes on, she very early on gets introduced to Jesse, the passenger of this journey, who's trying to get his number down. But his story is actually almost kind of irrelevant. Like, he gets helped through his issues. They solve that mystery pretty quickly in that season.
Yeah. It's not about him. Like he's there and he's really important, but it's not about him.
I think even when MT ends up going to the place where the passengers are kind of run through to get their number, you kind of learn that the train isn't really here to help you deal with major issues. It's really kind of something you can do with any issue if it causes personal trauma. It just has
to be important to you.
Yeah.
Something that might be causing like a big emotional block for you that you really want to run away from, but just should face in order to be a happier, healthier human being.
Like a dead lizard.
Yeah, like a kid that accidentally kills their lizard by dropping a rock on it or something is what appeared to be the cataclysm for one such event.
Yeah,
and then you have Jesse, who kind of just seems to yield to peer pressure.
And ended up like either spraining or breaking his brother's arm by doing so.
Hurting his little brother by not standing up against
not standing up for
basically.
Himself.
Like
I just want to be cool.
And not about standing up for himself, but standing up for someone else. Like just allowing
believing in his own
things to happen.
Believing in his own ideals.
Yeah, and so his arc is really, overcome when he at multiple turns defends someone else from people who don't want to hurt him but do want to hurt someone else, and taking a stand against that.
Which is where the real compounding issue of Tulip truly feeling like an outsider, like somebody who doesn't belong when it comes to the introduction of the Apex, who, seeing that she doesn't have a number, just believes she's another, what they claim to be a null, just an NPC of the train that's there for their purposes and should just be discarded or destroyed if it has no use or purpose to them.
Yeah. Yeah, they literally just reject MT's humanity.
Yeah, so they completely turn their back on her while Jesse and Grace are out kind of on a looting mission to, get some food for the car and maybe find some cool loot or cool treasures.
And screw over the cat.
Yeah, screw over the cat. They absolutely love fucking with the cat. Like, the cat knows who they are.
Yeah.
And while they're gone, Mirror Tulip is basically treated like a non-person, and the magical deer that is essentially Jesse's companion through the journey, his true messaging device, Alan Dracula, as it's come to be named, they're trying to find a use for it or enslave Alan Dracula to do what they want.
Stable him.
Tulip's, yeah. And Tulip's trying to stand up for it, ends up injuring one of the Apex kids. So by the time Jesse gets back, everybody's attacking Tulip, and he has to stand up for her. And that's what opens up his gate. He tries to pull her through with him, but she can't go because she's a part of the train.
Yeah.
And it's there where she realizes, maybe she doesn't matter. Maybe she really is just a part of this place, and she needs to figure out how to get off. So that's when she goes on her journey to, like Quinn said, try to get a number on her hand. But in doing so, it just completely bypasses her. Like, everything ignores her because she is of no consequence, essentially.
It's an entire it's an entire system that denies her humanity.
Mm-hmm. Except for the reflection police, the Flex, that continuously hound her.
Yeah.
And she eventually kills both of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a great episode.
Both of them very gruesomely.
Yeah, like one of them gets kind of cleaved in half and kind of looks like fucking Bishop at the end of Aliens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is leaking this silvery fluid because like Nick said, the only reason they're able to out and move about is because they're in these protective suits, which are essentially skins for them. So once they're injured, they start bleeding this mercurial liquid, and when MT kills, I think, Ben Mendelsohn's character at the end of the Wasteland episode, he pretty much just explodes on camera.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Grinds him into dust against the wheel of the train. It's
awesome.
It's a very tiny, and again, like with all the system not caring about like certain people within it, very timely.
Yeah. And and again, I feel like it's very, very important that it's characters literally telling MT, you're not real. Like, you don't matter. Nothing you think about yourself is real. And, basically like continuously gaslighting MT into thinking she's not a person. And
yeah, you don't matter. You're here to serve others. Yeah.
Even like the entire system that she lives in is telling her you're not a real person, and they're incorrect.
The most haunting line of that season actually, I think, came from Ben Mendelsohn's character. It's like, you got out of there, and now here you're just trapped again. It's just another mirror.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You don't have freedom. You are always a prisoner. You are always trapped. You are always at the service of this train. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. And I think it's important because I think this entire story, like with her, is especially with her like needing to find herself and not be reflected, by Tulip, and cutting off her hair, changing everything about herself, and like finding her own identity. I think it's all meant to be a sort of allegory for being LGBT, or particularly being trans. And actually, the name Lake really like choosing your own name being the culmination of that arc is really important, I think. Yes. I can't confirm this, but I got a really strong sense of that, and I feel like it's true.
I think it's like, there are shades of that, but I think more than anything, it's about the choice itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because by the end, we see once again that 1-1 isn't really a good guy or a good guys, I guess. It's just there to serve the passengers. It's there to serve its purpose.
Yeah, when someone says like, "Hey, if I kill her, your problem's solved," and one goes, "Yeah,
oh yeah, very true.
You can do that."
Because eventually, Jesse gets brought back aboard the train because he deeply, deeply regrets not being able to take Mirror Tulip with him. And so when they look at his number, they see that it's just like a bunch of different numbers. I swear to God, I thought it was going to become the infinity symbol and just like go full circle, but it never pulls that.
Maybe they're holding on to that one.
Maybe. So
and he literally uses his privilege to help Tulip.
He does, because he's like looking at his hand, and his hands, his number is insolvable. Like his problem is unsolvable without being able to take Mirror Tulip with him. But Mirror Tulip is a part of the train and therefore cannot leave. So the train starts freaking out and busting down in the climax of the final episode, where the Bradley Whitford's rookie character shows up and says like, I can kill her and then the problem will be solved. He can't take anybody back, so he'll have to go and she'll be dead, so the train will stop exploding. And I almost said Wheatley. 1-1 is basically like, oh yeah, sure, that'll work. Eventually they come up with a brilliant plan that since she is a reflective surface, she just holds her hand up to Jesse's numbers like, hey, look, I got a number, so I can go, right? Yeah, I guess that works too.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it.
Was that MT's idea or was it Jesse's?
That was MT's
I have to admit,
idea.
I'm a bit fuzzy on that.
It was MT's idea.
I think it's important that was her idea too, because it was her embracing what's different about herself and not being ashamed of it or hiding it.
And so we end with this happy ending where she's allowed to leave with Jesse, and she travels back to wherever the hell Jesse came from, and she names herself. We don't know what's going to happen to her from there on, because she is literally a chrome-plated, a mirror person just living in the real world. So, there's implications of what that could be, but I don't think we're ever going to see it.
Mm-hmm. Or eventually, like if the show gets to exist long enough, we get to see what happens when the character, like the train, bleeds into the real world. But
I'm just waiting until people realize Tulip's a vampire now that she doesn't have a reflection.
Yeah, they show that at the end of season 1, which leads into season 2, because as she's walking by a mirror, you don't see her reflection on the other side, which is just like I thought was like, oh, that's a really cool touch. Yeah. And I took a break to go make myself some dinner, sat down for season 2, and I'm like, oh, they were leading into this.
Yeah. Also, I just want to note that it's also very poignant that not only does it's not just that Metal Tulip like just sees a lake and goes, oh, my name's Lake because I see a lake. Like she looks at her own reflection. She's not scared of the water anymore. She's not scared of a reflective surface anymore. She's safe, and she names herself after the first time she sees her own reflection for once.
Does that not cause a weird paradox within her though?
Who knows?
She's now enslaved her own reflection.
That same thought crossed my mind right at the finale when I saw that she had a reflection, because I'm just wondering if it's an Ouroboros of a reflection that gets free then has a reflection that desires freedom.
Yeah, though, and maybe they'll address it eventually. Like maybe they could sort of work out a system where all right, if sort of like the end of the Matrix series, where there's look, if someone wants to leave, they can leave, but if they want to keep being a reflection, they'll just keep doing that, and just sort of open up that society a bit.
It's such a it's a show that opens up a lot of different questions and makes you think a lot, and it's just such a beautiful, amazingly emotionally mature show that I don't think I could recommend highly enough. It's charming, it's beautiful, and to end this on a quote, yet another quote from Atticus. The show is gone for now, and that leaves me with a heavy heart, which I bear gladly because it reminds me that it was there. Thank you for listening to the Talkcast Podshow, everybody. We're going to be doing an episode on Scott Pilgrim next week. Go check out Infinity Train.
Bye.
Bye-bye.